Hi guys, welcome back to the garden. It's been a while. I wanted to show all that's grown and all that's changed since the last time I brought you guys through the garden. So let's go. Snapdragons seem to be the only thing that want to bloom in this bed. We're working on the chicken coop. The comfrey has bounced back and it's doing a lot better. The fragrant cloud roses are blooming again. And I don't know if I showed you guys this last time, but there was a hyssop over in the other garden, and either the dog or one of the cats had stepped on it and broken a main branch out of it. And I took it and stuck it in the soil, and it's rooted and it started blooming. So I'm really excited that I was not only able to save the plant, but propagate the plant by an accident. The coreopsis and the agastache, the calendula, more coreopsis. The artichokes are getting bigger. These poppies bloomed and petered out and hopefully will reseed next year. The rudbeckia is getting ready to bloom. More snapdragons, cosmos, agastache. This one's finally budding up, getting ready to bloom. More rudbeckia. I think this one is the Sahara. Lamb's ear, dianthus that are finally picking up. Echinacea, it's gotten so much bigger. The salvia, that one's a white salvia, but the blooms look like it should be the salmon, but it came out white, so that's weird. And the sedum is getting ready to bloom. More agastache, and then the crazy daisies, hyssop. Oh no, that's the dark blue catmint. And then Jupiter's beard, echinacea, more agastache, the sedum, snapdragons. I remember when there was like a foot or two between each plant and it's just filled in gloriously. More snapdragons. The Gara, I know I need to get in here and pull out a lot of this grass and weeds, but this Gara is just getting ready to bloom. And then I can't remember if this one's going to be a surprise because I don't know what that one is. But it doesn't look like any weeds, so that's promising. This rudbeckia is so beautiful. I'm pretty sure this is what the Sahara rudbeckia is. Or it is the Sahara rudbeckia. More catmint. My first zinnia. This one's Queenie Lime Peach. And then Gara, echinacea, more cosmos, some dianthus, and just everything repeats throughout. But I'm loving all the colors. I was first trying to go for a certain color palette, but I feel like I really like the Skittles look. Every color under the rainbow. So that's this bed. We added this one. We still haven't put the compost on it, but we're getting there. So some of these are really struggling because they need some mulch. This one's a really miniature daisy. Now this catmint is kitting around, and then 3 at last roses. They have the most beautiful apricot blooms and they smell so good. And then this hibiscus is an evening hibiscus, but it has the most beautiful bright pink blooms and this dark foliage, I think will look really pretty with the Atlas roses. And then behind it, I got some cuttings, some seedlings from my mom's garden in Utah, Russian sage. Some of them didn't take, so I'll plant some around here because I kind of want some blue behind the dark foliage. And then just some snapdragons, so hopefully they'll seed. And then underneath the Japanese maple, it's a Silvermount Artemisia. And then over here in this bed, I put the black lace elderberries on either side of the quickfire hydrangea. This one is much darker because it does get afternoon sun. So this one may end up with green foliage. But I don't know how much longer this tree is going to live. When I looked online, these box elder trees really only live till about 25 years. And it's looking like it's lived its best life. And it's about done. So when that one comes out, I think we're either going to hope that this flowering plum does its thing or get another slower growing deciduous tree to go here, but maybe something that will give a little more filtered afternoon shade instead of such heavy shade. On to my favorite part. So we got all except for one trellis in, and I'm so excited. So the tomatillos are growing up so big. I seeded some beets in between, but it's been too hot, so I think I'm going to have to come back through and sow those again. Then there's zucchini in the corner, and then some zinnias coming up, and more zucchini and squash. These are dwarf tomatoes, so they didn't really need trellising, so they didn't get any. In this bed, I had seeded rutabagas and onions and things, but it got way too hot, way too fast. But I also put parsnips down the center, and of all the things that decided to take, the parsnips are sure going. And then the tomatoes in this row, we finally got some green tomatoes, so that's wonderful. Now we've got tomatoes all along here with some carrots coming up in between. Cucumbers and zinnias. The corn is starting to tassel. It needs to get a little bit taller. The cowpeas. Our first pepper. And that one's a California Wonder pepper. And more cherry tomatoes getting ready. Moon and Stars watermelon. Got a bunch of squash. This one in the center, I think, is going to succumb to squash bugs because I've been pulling squash bugs eggs off of it almost daily. So in here, there's little butternut squash, cowpeas. Right here, there's cucumbers and cowpeas coming up the trellis. I help them climb a little bit. There. And then a whole mess of squash in here. Most of it's butternut and honey nut squash. And then on this side, I have no idea what this squash is, but it's making me so happy. It's so big. It's the size of my head almost. This one plant that's all the way up the trellis is all the way down here to here and has sprawled out this way, and that way. It's humongous. Then we've got more little baby squash. And the vines are running all out, all over the garden. But after it struggled for so long, it's so wonderful to see it putting on fruit. I mean, this one's just covered with butternut squash. There's 3 on that one. And 1 up this way. More down here. We still have deer coming in, unfortunately, and eating on the sweet potatoes, but they're going to be about done. And then in here, we have zinnias coming up. Last week, I harvested my first zucchini. And it was so good. It looks like there's going to be 2 or 3 in the next day or 2. More sweet potatoes and yams and squash. And over here, we had some issues with tomatoes, and so I took some of my spares that I still hadn't potted up, or hadn't planted, were still in pots, and planted them in between, so maybe we'll get a fall harvest out of those. There's more on these. So those are Cherokee purple down here, and then these ones are black creme. Well, there's our blue cream berries. These ones I'm pretty sure are sweethearts because this shape. This one we pulled our first black beauty off of it. But the other that was on there, a stinking raccoon came and took it. They've been digging holes and causing all sorts of problems in the garden. So we have our fencing all ready to put it up, but it just won't quit raining, and when there's lightning and thunder, nobody wants to be pounding T-posts. And over here, the bush beans are flowered up and they're starting to produce. And these Chinese red noodle beans, I was going to pick them, and then I didn't. So they're going to stay on there until they plump up like this one and dry up and save them for seeds next year. There's little zinnias popping up in the middle. Peppers. This golden nugget tomato, I think, is about done for the year. And then the beans down here are just getting ready. And more tomatoes that are finally putting on blossoms. We have rain in the forecast for the next, 4 days. So hopefully with the rain, all the plants will be much happier. But it feels so good to have these trellises in and to walk the garden and see things finally growing. But I'm really pleased to see some of the flowers filling in, like the monarda, some of the herbs, and these little blackberries that we'd planted, and the currants. Some of them took. That blackberry came back from the dead. Little butterflies everywhere. But it's coming along. And the rhubarb, it really doesn't like that spot, but it's going to have to. And my sweet neighbor brought us a beauty berry bush. So we have to find a place away from the garden because he says they self-seed readily. And then the blueberry patch only has 2 left, but it still has 2. We'll take what we can get. The scarlet kale has come back after the grasshoppers ate it alive. There's more green beans to pick probably tomorrow. I'm not going to do it today. And the pole beans are starting to climb. And the cabbages, the ones in this bed did fine. The ones in this bed have had cabbage moths on them like crazy. But look at that teepee. I just love that trellis covered in those vines. I had to finally put this other stick up because the weight of the beans was so much that it was going to fall down, and it had split, but it needed one more support because it was leaning, and so that's there. We were picking them the other day to eat the purple potted beans green or fresh, but as you can see them on here, there is a colony of huntsman spiders or daddy long-legged spiders, and I'm not a fan of spiders, and so they can have them until everything dies. They can eat all the bugs, and we'll just have dried beans this year. The carrots that I seeded are all coming up with a little bit of calendula in between, turnip or the rutabaga, and then these ones, the cabbages really got thrashed, but the chickens really liked all the little treats, feeding them all the cabbage moth caterpillars. And then this Napa cabbage that went to seed, the pods are now dry, so I can try to collect the seeds from these. More rutabagas that are getting eaten. Like this cabbage is just toast. But I guess if we can offer up a little bit at a time, just as a sacrifice to the bugs, maybe they'll leave some other ones alone. Like they eat this bed, but they leave that one alone. This bed is hopeless. These Brussels sprouts are finally showing some growth after planting them in March. I think, I don't know, the heat was just too much for them or what. The rutabagas are starting to take off. These ones were the only ones that took in the beginning, and they should be ready to harvest in just a little bit. And the kale came back, but I'm getting all the seeds started and ready to start all the lettuce and spinach and things for these beds. Hopefully be more judicious about spraying them with neem oil and stuff. And then I got a gooseberry plant we planted. We waited a little too long to plant it, but the new growth looks good, so I'm hopeful that it will be okay. You like the sunflowers? Or what would be sunflowers if the deer didn't come and eat all the new growth every time it showed any signs of growth. And then more winter squash. More things tunneling in the yard. As soon as we get that fence up, the better. This one, I'm pretty sure is a Goldie. It's either the Indian Summer or the Goldilocks Rudbeckia. And then another zucchini. The stinking deer eat every little flower off my zinnias. They leave the salvia alone though. Okay. Just nipping off the zinnias. And the rudbeckias. Stinkers, deer resistant, my left toe. But this new green growth is really good on these trees after the deer came in, between deer and bugs, and munched them all because they really need to store up energy for the winter. And then the elderberries that we planted, and more zinnias. None of the cosmos decided to come up in this bed, which is weird. And then the blackberry. But that's the garden, and it's glorious, and we love it. And I can't believe that summer is almost over. I feel like we didn't even, because we were in such a rush to do it all, get to enjoy it. But I'm glad the butterflies do. Thanks for coming along with me today. Have a beautiful day.